I'm now hearing it, and it's coming from up this ridge. This is where it gets freaky. This is the worst of the worst of it. Okay. This is the most unexplainable stuff. That's not what happened. And he's like, how do you know? And I was like, well, it's my story. You know, like, these are my experiences here. I guess it really began around 2013 is whenever like the actual story started kind of coming together. And about the years up till about 2017, my experiences with this story in this certain area, the field area that all this happened in, more and more incidences happened and things, and the story just kept getting more and more added on to it throughout the years. And it became a whole thing. It became the Abigail story. So all the staff knew, all the kids in the program knew about it or heard about it. And what was cool about this is over the years, you would have these kids coming to and from all other locations or whatever, right. And they'd come in and they would say that they've heard the Abigail story. And I'm like, wow, you've never even been here. You know, like you're talking like you've been out in California. How do you know the Abigail story? These kids would come back and say that they've heard of the story. And I would ask them what they know about it. And, you know, some things were around the way that it actually happened. And other things were just completely blown out of proportion or added in, things that were never talked about or discussed or never happened in the story. And I always found that kind of cool that it just became this story that just spread out, you know, because in these type of programs, these people, they end up going to other programs, most likely some sort of boarding school or something like that or whatnot. So they're going all over the place and telling this story. And it created its own, it just started, it just like blossomed into something completely different. It's also been banned multiple times from the program. Wow. Because it was just too much. It would just really freak everybody out and just kind of like stir everything up. And really? For a little while it got banned, but it always found its way back. And
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Look, can I ask about that real quick? When did you hear that it had become banned? Were you still there at the time, or?
Oh yeah. It got banned a few times while I was there. You know, like therapists would tell me, like, we can't tell this anymore. Oh wow. Like, let's not like have groups sitting around a fire and telling scary ghost stories. You know what I mean? Like, let's not do that here, especially this one. Because because even though it's just other staff started telling the story as well. So I would come into work and I'd hear that the kids went and camped at the Abigail site. And I was like, where'd y'all camp? And they'd show me on the map. And I'm like, that's not the Abigail site, you know? And they're like, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. They know. And the other week, actually, I brought this up with a coworker of mine who used to work at the same company, but a few years after I'd left. And I was asking him about the Abigail story, and he said he knew it, and he started telling me, and then I was like, well, that's not what happened. He goes, yeah, it is. And I was like, it's not. That's not what happened. And he's like, how do you know? And I was like, well, it's my story. You know, like, these are my experiences here. And it just got real wild, and other people's imagination really took a hold of the story, you know, and also I went by a nickname out there in the field. And so like, I think that who I was as a person out there also got like, put like in this like mythos sense with the story as well. Okay. And so like, I'm no longer there. So yeah, I'm like this character, and they're like, he was blah, blah, blah. My name back in the day, they just called me Bro. And they're like, yeah, this guy Bro, he was doing that. I was like, I'm Bro. You know, so I was like, that's not what happened. I didn't do that.
And
So
you had had this happen numerous times, though. People would come up to you and say, "Hey, the story. Hey, this is what happened." And it sounds you had to have this conversation with a lot of people. Like, no, that's not
yeah,
it,
I
right?
would say that, and then they would say, "Well, no, that is the Abigail site," or "No, that is what
Wow.
happened," and I'm just like, okay. Because at this point it's like, it's out of my hands. Like I
Yeah.
know that it's bigger than like just my story. I think it's just cool that like through my experiences and just telling a little bit of this, it's just turned into something so much more, so much bigger. And yeah, also I like to say like it's not a really scary story.
Sure.
It's just a really weird, creepy, like yeah, just add up of events that
Right.
just kind of like they just weigh on top of each other and just get weirder and weirder and weirder. And it's just all in this location. And it's just, yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm not trying to like build up such a hype for it. And then everybody's going to be like, oh, it's not that bad.
Well, yeah, that's always a risk with these kind of things. Cause again, at this point, just for everyone to know, I have not heard the story. So I've been hearing the same thing about this kind of thing, but I think that the mythos, like you've said, is usually it's like a story in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what's so cool about it. But
It's
sure.
just it's difficult when you're saying or telling a story like this, and people that have worked in that field will know what I'm talking about, like certain things. And I really struggle trying to tell it in a way that just your average Joe can understand what I'm saying, and like really like get it and picture it and stuff.
Sure.
So if you got any questions about something I said doesn't make any sense, just ask me and I'll go into detail with it. In 2012, this is when everything was starting. It's actually the year that I started working in wilderness, and I was just a few months in to the job. And one of the things that you do in wilderness is towards the end of a group's stay or certain times throughout the stay of a client, they do something called solos, which is where we pretty much just layer. I don't know how to say this, but we spread the kids out, and we put them all around us. But they have like their own little world, their own little campsite. So they're far enough from us that we can't see them. They're out of eyes. We can't necessarily like hear what they're doing or anything like that. And the idea is that they have like around 2 days, just completely by themselves. It's a pretty cool experience. Like we give them their food, their water.
Wow.
They make their own fire. They have to tend it. They have to make sure that they go on a wood collect for themselves. Everything. They're fully independent in this moment, right?
Okay.
And we were in this crazy site to do it. And I remember doing solos as a kid, right? But this is my first time actually working and being a part of that process as a staff member. And we had these guys just scattered all over the place. And it's like the light of Gondor, I think that's right, with like Lord of the Rings, like you light the tower and then the other tower lights and that sends the signals.
Beacons are lit. The beacons are lit.
So what you do is like if something comes up, say a snake or a boar or a bear comes through the person's campsite, they don't just scream staff or help or anything like that, because we might not know where it's coming from. So they just call out their name. They'd be like, Brian, and then the next kid would say my name as well. So then when we start hearing people yell out Brian's name, we know to go to Brian, as an example. So they are pretty spread out. This area that we're in, super hilly, super ditchy. It's got a bunch of like horseshoe ravines and stuff like that. It's just it's a really pretty site too. Very open. It's about 10 minutes from a road. So we weren't too far from like not a main road, but a road. But we're out off the road a good ways, right? And these kids, they also can't talk during this process, during solos. So if they have any questions, when we come by and check on them periodically throughout the day, we give them a pen and paper, and then they have to write down their questions,
Okay.
you know, and that's how we communicate.
Oh.
And that's just during this process.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we're doing the rounds, and we walk up on the first kid. We called him Honest Gabe. He was the man. He was just a real solid, good kid. And when we come up to his campsite, he looks pretty frantic. He's like acting like he really wants to write something down. So I was like, okay. So I handed him a piece of paper. And when he handed it back to me, it said, "Did you see the girl?" And I was like, okay, dude, you can talk, because there's nobody's supposed to be out there. And the groups were separated, right? You had your girls groups, your dude groups and stuff like that. So there shouldn't have been anybody out there in general, you know, and we weren't close enough to the groups that would have been like a concern, like with a female walking through camp. So I was like, dude, you can talk, you know? And he goes, wow. He was just sitting down, and he's like in this horseshoe crevice, right? So the hill's coming down, and he's right in the middle at the bottom slope of the hill. And then there's two hills that I can't find my camera. There's two hills that like slant down. Yep, right in the horseshoe. And staff, our shelter is right over this one hill. And so he's the first kid next to us. And so he said that he was just sitting there, and then he started hearing leaves kind of sloshing around at the top of the hill. And then he looked up, and he said he saw this girl walking down the hill, just kind of like skipping a little bit, kind of like fast. And then whenever he actually saw her and she saw him, she like halted from like coming down the hill quickly and just started walking. Oh. And as she's walking up, she keeps getting closer and closer to him, and he's about to call his name out. And as he's about to call his name out, because, you know, somebody's in the camp, he doesn't know who this person is, right as he's about to do it, she goes, and then she points where she's going over the hill towards the staff, and then she just goes, and then points back up the hill where she just came from and said, Abigail. And then she kept walking over the ridge to where we are, the staff are. And we were like, well, we haven't seen anybody. And I was like, what'd she look like? He said, looked like a 10 to 13-year-old girl. He said that she had braided hair, black hair. She was also black, and wearing like a white, like gownish dress that stopped about right here at her legs, and she was barefoot. And walked right over the ledge, right to us. And he was saying that I thought you would have seen her because she walked right to y'all's camp spot. We're like, no, dude, we haven't seen anybody. Like, and we called him Honest Gabe because he was such a good, honest kid. And he had already done solos before. And you imagine, you know, somebody that didn't necessarily want to do that or be by themselves may end up saying something like that so they can get off of, you know, having to do the solo or having to be by themselves, you know. But that wasn't the case with this kid, it seemed. So there was another group nearby. There was a girl in the group named Abby at the time. And so I ended up calling in just to make sure that, you know, they had all the kids there. And they're like, yeah, no, everybody's there, you know. And then I was like, huh, weird, you know. And so ever since then, like throughout like the next year or two, that was like the big joke at work. Was like whenever something came up missing, it was like, oh, Abigail took it, you know. And like that was just kind of like the thing. So I never thought anything of that again. I wasn't like creeped out by that at all. I just didn't think anything of it, and it just mainly became a joke, right?
Did the kid, Honest Gabe, did he any, like in the description, was she sort of translucent or glowing, kind of like a spirit, or did she just seem like a completely real girl?
Real. Even sloshed the leaves around when she was walking. Like you could, hear it and everything. It's just crazy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she shushed him right as he's about to call his name. Like she knew that he was about to say something.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And then she pointed, where she was going, pointed up the hill where she came from, and then said Abigail as she pointed up the hill. I just can't see my finger. This camera's throwing me off, dude.
Yeah, I could see. So she pointed back to where she had come from and said Abigail.
Mm-hmm. And then she kept the finger shushing and then pointed where she was going, which was towards us. A year or so goes by. I've been working. At that point in time, I was just the lonely intern. You know, I just had a few weeks under my belt. But as the year went on, I'm really trying to, you know, progress and level up and, get higher rankings at work and stuff. And a part of the things that you have to do is learn navigation. You have to learn how to read a map. You have to figure out campsites for like switch out days and all sorts of stuff. And you have to go scouting. You have to go out and find the spot the day before, and a lot more responsibility, right? That's coming into this. Well, I had just led my first backcountry hike, and this is about a year later. And I make it up to the top of this ridge with the group that I'm with, and this is right before dinner time. This is around September, October-ish. You know, it's got some fall, some leaves are out. Everybody's tired. I got everybody to a spot where they needed to be, and I was like, well, I do still have some daylight left. We're all leaving tomorrow. We need to have a campsite for the next day. I was like, I'm going to go down and scout out and make sure that we have running water, that we have a place to put up shelters and a good spot for camp. And so we're at the top of this ridge. So then I just start going down the hill, and it is a very steep hill that I'm going down. And as I'm looking down from the top of the hill, about halfway down, there's like this cut of like fog. And like, I was always pretty sketched out walking around out there by myself. I always had like a Bear Grylls knife. I thought that protected me somehow from everything. I always like had it like ready to go. And, but we also have radios and stuff, so we can always stay in contact with our other staff members in case something happens. But I'm looking at the fog and I'm like, well, that's a little eerie. So, but I just keep walking on down. And as I'm walking, like, you know, I can just hear the leaves just sloshing all around my feet. It's just so loud, right? And as I start getting into the fog and I'm about halfway down this hill, once I got into that fog, everything got like weirdly loud and quiet at the same time. Like the leaves were, I don't know, like turned up a volume to where they were like so loud, but I couldn't hear birds or anything else, you know, but like that was like it was almost like deafening. And then as I'm sloshing through, I start thinking, I think I'm hearing something else slosh through these leaves. Every now and again, like I would like stop sloshing the leaves to see if I was going to like trip something up, like if it was like a bear or something like that, and like see if I still hear something walking.
How dark is it outside?
Anytime I stopped
at this, how dark is it?
It's
some light, or
I probably had about so from the top of the ridge we still had some good light, but once I got into the fog, it definitely got a little darker. I probably had about 30 minutes or so of sunlight left or more, and you know. Yeah, so I mean, it was getting dark. It was getting there. And so I was like, that's weird, because I'm always scared of like a bear or something. I always look for like trees that I would climb, but then you remember bears climb trees too, so you're just kind of screwed. But
that's good to know.
Yeah, I know, right? I've had one right above my head. I've had a lot of bear incidents out there too.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
So I start walking down to the bottom of the hill, and I finally make it, and I make it. And I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly where I am. Like, I did solos here a year ago. So I was like, okay, so all I got to do is, I was like, I'm going to look real good here, because I'm about to come back and I know where, like, we're going to have water, we're going to have shelters, we're going to have camp, all sorts of stuff. And so I'm walking around. And one thing about this specific site, and I cannot stress this enough, it changes. It is the weirdest place ever. Something's wrong with this place. But seasonally, it's a completely different place than winter to summer. I mean, the way things grow in and the way it all dies, I can't even explain it. You can be there 100 times and you can get lost. You can go across the wrong ridge and all of a sudden there's no more trail. And you're like, well, where the hell did the trail go? You know, and it's just a really eerie, weird, like mazy place, you know?
Yeah.
But so I find where we did shelters that first time, and I was like, okay, so we can do camp around here where the shelters used to be, but I was going to go try to find a new place for shelters. So I'm stepping up and I'm going over this ridge, and I get down the bottom of this ridge, and then all of a sudden, and this part I'm going to have to say a few times, but I want you to know that everything I'm about to say happened like within like a second. Okay. I get down to the bottom of this ridge, and then, and my heart just went, just insanity. The ground just blew up. It was a grouse. A bird was underneath the leaves. And when I stepped, I scared them, and they just flew out from the ground. Just went, and just leaves flew everywhere. The birds are gone.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, it scared me so bad, dude. Like I got a ringing in my ear. My adrenaline was pumping. It was like, ding, this like flatlining ring of adrenaline in my ear. So now everything's deafening. So it's like, all I can hear is my heartbeat pounding inside my head. And it's like you're underwater type hearing, but with like this crazy ring. And, I also went straight to the ground. I was like, oh, and I just like went to the ground. And at that time also, so the birds go up, my hearing's gone, my adrenaline's up, my heart's racing, I'm on the ground. And then I start, and then, right after that,
Man.
what happened? So as I'm like trying to breathe, and all I hear is like internally, like my heart beating in my head, right? Just pounding with that flatline noise. And then I start hearing leaves move, like that thing I was trying to catch walking down the hill and see if I could trip it up and like see if I hear leaves moving when I'm not moving. I'm now hearing it, and it's coming from up this ridge, and it's just sloshing, but I can barely hear because my adrenaline's pumping. It's like over my heartbeat and everything, I'm hearing like the distant sounds of leaves moving. And then in that moment, so remember, all this happened like within a millisecond, right? In that moment, I realized where I'm sitting. I'm sitting at Honest Gabe's shelter site, where his shelter was. That noise of the leaves are coming up the hill that he said that she came down.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, right where he pointed where she came down at. And then right whenever I made that distinction, like however I envisioned Abigail or the little girl in my head, like I caught like an image of her like in my head, like for a split second of like, oh my God, like everything's so creepy. And then my radio just goes, and it just gets, and then I was like, oh my God. And then I just hauled ass. I just started running. I was just out of there. And, never saw anything come down the hill. I just heard everything, but all that happened so quickly. And, as I'm running up, I was like, are y'all trying to get in touch with me? Like, what's going on? And they're like, what were you doing? And they're at the top of this hill, like a good, 20-minute walk away from me, or a run, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, what were you doing? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you were singing in the radio, like, what were you trying to do? And I was like, what do you mean? Singing what? And they're like, it sounded like you were like trying to like act like a little kid singing. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then like at that point, I'm still running, talking to everybody on the radio. And then I just keep running. I'm going up that freaking hill that took me forever to walk down. I cleared that in probably about 5 minutes. And I make it back up. And then that was the Abigail story for the longest time. Just that portion, just that bit right there. Never knew that it was going to get way more involved. For the longest time after that happened, that's what the story was. That's what I would tell everybody. And over like another year or so, that was the story. And everybody wanted to go to the site at a certain point. You know, the story had been going around and people wanted to go back there and stuff. For the longest time, that was the story. And one day, me and 2 other staff, that were also the highest level that you could be in the company at the time. We were great at like navigation, map, compass, all that stuff. Like we didn't really ever get lost. We don't get lost, you know?
Yeah.
But we went out there because they wanted to see the Abigail site and like where everything happened because they'd heard the story so much. And we went after a shift one day, and it was also probably about a good like hour and a half before it got dark.
And I'm sorry, how much longer after this past instance was this?
Probably like a year or so.
Another year. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Another year passed.
Gotcha.
And we're out there, and we walk up. I like had like my old like iPhone, you know, and trying to like video stuff. And
Right.
we actually walked up to the top of the ridge that you were asking about. We decided to go up to the very top and see if we see anything. I mean, there was like a really weird looking tree, but other than that, you can read into stuff like that, like nothing. Mm-hmm. And, but it just like plateaued up there. And so on our way back down, it started getting a little dark, and we ended up getting back on the trail to go back out to the car. And we're walking. It's getting a little bit darker and darker. We didn't have headlamps out there. We didn't need headlamps at this point. You know, we're like, we're fine. We're just going to go up there and come right back. And following the trail, and then all of a sudden, the trail stops, and we're just in front of like all this rhododendron and mountain laurel, just all in front of us. And I was like,
you might need to tell me what that is. Rhodo what?
It's a very thick, windy, bendy tree. It's like the most annoying thing to ever climb through if you have a backpack on.
Okay.
Very dense.
Gotcha.
So I go right to the end of the trail, and I'm at this rhodo bush right in front of me, and I got the two other staff behind me, and I was like, dude, like I lost the trail. I don't know how that happened. And I turn around, and we're circled in this one open patch, but surrounded by rhododendron and mountain laurel. And we looked down, there was no trail. We weren't even on a trail anymore. We just ended up in this, like, we don't even know how we got in there because you couldn't even get out. It's like, how we just walk in here? You know, there's no trail leading us in here. And like, you know, the whole time we're kind of messing around too. I'm like, show me that you're here kind of stuff. You know, I was young and trying to be all goofy and stuff like when we were up top. And then when that happened, I was like, don't show me anything. You know,
I can imagine. Yeah. So how quickly did you realize, was this like a sudden change, like in the blink of an eye, or was it just it just kind of like slowly?
Yeah. So like I said, that area is like a maze already. You can be there 100 times and you can still get lost somehow. It makes no sense. And yeah, we're just walking and talking. We're just walking on trail that we know if we go this way, we're going to hit the road. You know, we're going to leave and get out on the main road or whatever. And that trail just stopped. And we're just content, like we're just surrounded, and we couldn't figure out how to get out. So we're just like, well, we know we got to keep going forward, right? Like that's where the road is. That's where the car is. And it's getting dark. So it's like, and I look at my phone, and my phone's just draining battery. You know, and I have like a little flashlight. I was about to call my parents and just, you know, tell them I love them. You know,
all of the telltale things that happen in strange instances, right? Wow.
But it was just weird because there's three adults that are very good with navigation and, you know, can figure this stuff out, and we don't know how that happened. You know, So what we decided
to do was a shared experience, right? I mean, this wasn't just you saying, "Oh, it happened to me," and I was the only one out there.
No, I got tons of people that have been a part of a lot of these stories that will say they either don't know really how to explain what happened, but it happened. A lot of people don't even want to talk about it because they don't even understand. Like they want to make sense out of it. They don't like the fact that it doesn't make sense, right? Like what happened. So we just continue to go straight. We're crawling through this rhodo. I'm trying to keep talking to everybody and being like, are y'all out yet? And I'm not getting any answer from anybody. And I was like looking back behind me. I can't see them. I don't know where they are. They're not to the left of me. They're not behind me. Nobody's in front of me, you know? And I'm just still like in this thick bush. And so that sketched me out. All of a sudden, like, we were right together, and then we just got separated, like, hardcore. And finally, I pushed out to the road, and then I start calling out their names. And then one person, like 15 feet, like down the ridge, popped out on a road, and then another one, like 30 feet the opposite direction. It's like, how did we get that far apart?
Wow.
You know, like, and we popped out in 3 different spots in our car. From like the actual trail that we were going to was like another 4-minute walk down the road. We were nowhere near the car. Like, we popped out of nowhere.
Wow.
And it's just nuts. It was like we got spit out in a way. And have you ever like gone underneath the waterfall and like slid under one, and how it just like pushes you out and you're just randomly out wherever the hell the water took you? It felt like that, but in the woods.
Yeah.
So then that also became a part of, like, an addition to the story, right? So like as the years go, I just have more and more little additions of my experiences and things that have happened out there. So people, not just staff, but students also, they really wanted to go to the Abigail site.
So it's built this sort of following now, I guess, right, at this point. Okay.
Yeah. And they're really wanting to go. And not only do they want to go, they want to like put their shelter in Honest Gabe's spot. They want that spot. They're like, you know, who can be the most brave? You know, I'm going to take Honest Gabe's spot, you know?
Go ahead, sunshine.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, so one night, so all the staff, we all slept under one tarp. We called it Big Blue. It's just this massive big blue tarp. It can sleep 8 people easy underneath this one tarp. And the way that the tarps are, I don't know if you know much about that, but it's an A-frame, you know,
okay.
The way that it goes down. And it's probably, if this is the ground, you know, the bottom of the tarp's probably about right here from the ground, or maybe sometimes higher, you know. But like if you're laying down, it looks like you're open, right? So like you can just look out from the tarp and you can see everything. You can see if somebody's moving around or walking or whatever. So you're not like enclosed. It's not a tent.
So it's just meant to kind of keep rain off you. That's about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the way that you do it is we have some cordage, and from one end you just tie it around. It's just a ridge line, you know. It's just tied around a tree.
Yeah.
But from that ridge line, you can look in, and you can hang like wet clothes or something over that line, or anything that you need to. You know, it's a pretty sturdy line. But one night, when we were at the Abigail site, this staff member, this is like one of those things I wish I could just show, you know, I just don't know how. But we're all sleeping, and there's a few kids in the group. One in particular was a little negative at the time, you know, probably had a little bit more negativity, you know, but he really wanted the Honest Gabe spot. He was the one that really wanted it. He was like, I'm going to show y'all, I got this, like nothing's going to happen. Well, the staff, she said that she was sleeping, and then she heard somebody walking around, and that happens at night, right? Like the guys get up, they go to the bathroom. We have dogs out there too that could be scrummaging around.
Right.
But she just heard something. And we also take like shoes at night and stuff. So like, you know, the kids can't run off in the middle of the night and like try to like run off or whatever. And she starts hearing some footsteps come her way. And she looks down the tarp, and she sees this pair of feet walking along the edge, right? And with a little white above like the ankles, little white dress above the ankles, and then the rest was cut off by the ridgeline. So you only get about that much visibility of whatever's walking or whoever's walking to you.
Oh, wow.
But we don't have white clothing out there. She's like, that's really weird. She's like, I might be dreaming. So she closed her eyes and then opened them back up, and just the footprints and like the noises and everything and whatever she saw wasn't there anymore. This is what she's telling me. And she's like, okay. She closed her eyes again, and then she hears a crunch right next to her head. and she looks up, and like she's like seeing like leaves move next to her head, and all of a sudden like these feet just plant 1, 2 right next to her head. So she's not looking or anything. She just sees 2 feet right next to her head, and she looks up, and she can't see. It's like, you just see like the bottom part of the gown and the foot, and everything else is covered by the tarp. And then she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, this isn't real. This isn't real. And then she keeps saying that to herself, and she hears the tarp moving.
Oh, wow.
And then she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then she feels this on her head. She said she felt just a tap on her forehead. And then she's like freaking out. And then she opens up her eyes, and the first thing that she sees is this little girl just not even saying shh, just, and then she points again, puts her hand out and points. And then the staff looked where she was pointing to, and she sees this shelter that one of the students are in the Honest Gate spot. And she said that she saw this old woman in like scraggly black, loose, like worn clothing, very thin layer, like wavy black clothes. Also has like, can see like her shins and stuff, like a high cut dress type deal or gown or like what have you. White grayish hair, bony, just skinny, hanging over this kid's shelter, just looking into it from the outside, just hanging over it. And then whenever she looked at her, the lady looked at the staff, and then the staff woke up. Or came to, and that was that. So that night also,
Chills.
for me, I had a dog. I had a dog out in the field. And I also had something, I heard something that night too, and I got poked in the face as well. And it felt like a tooth. But this is just something I'm just remembering. Like, I felt like, I'm always remember, like, I woke up, I felt like this pop on my face, like right here. And I believe it was that same night as well. But I had a dog. He just recently passed away. But if anybody's listening out here that knew Arkillo, he was the man. My dog's name was Arkillo. And he was just this.
That's a great dog name.
Dude, he was just the man, dude. And I thought it was like him coming around me and sniffing, and then got poked. No, it was not my dog. I did not have Arkillo at this point. It was another staff's dog. So I thought it was like a poke like that. And it still could have been, who knows. But it's just weird that she had something like that. And then I felt like a poke as well. But that was also an addition to the story. Now this staff member had a really crazy experience seeing that at that site. That's just a really weird, crazy thing.
That whole, was this in the dead of night, or was this?
Yeah, this is pitch dark night.
Okay, but she could.
Well,
it was,
moonlight and stuff.
Yeah, moonlight, but she could still make out, the shins, the dress, and the old woman. Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah, because out there, man, especially like next to like the tarp, like it gets bright.
Sure.
Out there, like it's like wild how well you can see.
Right.
At night, like it really is. So then that became the whole Abigail story. At that point, like ending it with something like that, and it also started getting me thinking, like Abigail might not be that little girl.
Yeah.
I started thinking Abigail might be that
interesting
old lady. That girl might have been coming down and saying, "Shh, Abigail's up there. I'm going this way. You should go that way. Be quiet." Like, so I started thinking like that for like a little while. And then like I had a situation that, oh God, nothing confirms it, obviously, but like some crazy stuff. Now we fast forward like another year or so later.
Okay. Wow.
Now I'm
This is good.
This is where
it gets freaky here. This.
No, this is where it gets freaky. This is like this is the worst of the worst of it. Okay. This is the most unexplainable stuff. At this point, I am very much like running groups, leading groups, whatnot. I'm training staff. I'm taking a lot of the new staff in, and I'm training them on how to, you know, do logistics or do hard skills, soft skills, all that. And it was also this week. It happened to be my dog's first week out in the field. He got certified to be a field dog, and this is what he looked like. This was Archillo.
Aw.
He was the
I'm
man.
sorry you lost your dog, by the way. That's terrible. But
Yeah. It was a tough one.
yeah.
He was a staff out there, you know, like everybody loved him. He was just the man. He was a food ninja, food thief, though. He would take everybody's food. So, like, everybody had chores and stuff. And one of the chores, they had to make a new one. It was called Archillo duty to make sure, like, he's not going to get the food. He was massive, though. He was just a big old boy, too. Stood about as tall as me.
Wow.
But so it was his first week out in the field. It was a trial run. I was hoping that everything was going to go good. And it was also, I was working with 4 other staff, and 2 of them were decently new. One was actually had been there like over a year. The other one had been there less than a year. And then one guy, his name, I won't use his real name, but I'll use his code name. His name's Full Metal. I named him Full Metal. And I still call him Full till this day.
Okay.
He's one of my best friends ever. And
that's a good name.
Dude,
yeah,
he was a beast out there. He was I just call him Full Metal. And he's like this big old dude, but when he sees spiders, he goes, ah! Like he like freaks out. You know, it's like an elephant in a mouth, you know?
That's awesome.
And but it was his first week out there. I'm working with this other guy that's out there that's also like decently new, and he wants to learn how to do map and compass and lead a backcountry hike. It's like little things you have to do to like level up and move forward, and you have to get these things checked off, and have to make sure, you know, you didn't get us lost. You actually knew where you were going, like all sorts of stuff. So we're hiking up this hill, and I'll let him decide where he wants to go, right? He just has to show me on the map where we're trying to get to. As long as we get there at some point, doesn't have to be today, but if that's your end goal, we got to make it there.
Sure.
So he decided to go up this hill and like cut over like the top of this ridge, where, it just looked a little sketchy to me, but I was like, if you want to do it, like make a mistake, you know, we'll learn from it. This is going to be a really difficult hike. And also, it was Archillo's first week out there, and it was a pretty tough hike for him as well. He's a pretty furry dog. You know, this is Georgia in the summer. And
yeah.
But we're going up this hill, and we make it up to the top of this ridge, and it's just like this open bowl. But on the way up there, like we passed a bunch of like boars' dens and stuff where you can see like the boar have been like nesting, and you don't want to run into boar out there.
Yeah.
You know, but all of a sudden I can't find my dog. My dog's missing. And I'm just like, Archillo, come on. And I just don't hear him. Like, great, he's chasing a boar, or he's dehydrated and he can't make it. You know, like I don't know where my dog is. And we're at the top of this hill. I'm in the back of the line. And my buddy that's leading the hike radios me and goes, hey, my compass is acting up. Will you look at your compass and let me know if we're doing this right? And I was like, yeah. And I had a compass around my neck, and I lifted up my compass, and my dial is spinning. It's just all sporadic, just going everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? Like, that's not what it does. The guy leading the hike comes back and just showed me his compass, and it's just going wild too. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I've never seen that before. And I was like, but, you know, that's weird, but we are on top of this. It's plateaued. Like, we can set up camp here. We need to eat dinner. I need to go find my dog, you know, and we got to find a water run too. So the top of this ridge is like this big circled bowl, and it's just a drop off on all like surrounding areas. So like if you're going to go anywhere, you're just going straight down a hill, like all around you. And So half the group went to go do a water run, which is really important. You know, you got to have water.
Yep.
But it's also difficult when you're that high up on a situation like that. You're probably gonna have to go down pretty far and look. And also it's difficult because you're like crunching through all the rhodo. So like everything around us that you have to get through is just that thick rhododendron mountain world that I talked to you about earlier.
Right.
Just very thick stuff. And it probably took the group about an hour to go find water. And then on the way back, it was dark at this point. They had headlamps on, so I could see them coming back up, but you could also hear them from like trying to get up this hill for like 20 minutes. You can just hear the echoing of them sloshing through the leaves, crunching through branches, you know, really trying to traverse and get back up to the top of the hill with water. At this point, my dog came back, so I'm happy. You know, I'm like, oh, what a little baller, you know?
How long had he been gone at that point, would you say?
2-3 hours.
Oh,
and then I got used to it after that. He always just did his own thing. I never worried about him. I would do this thing. I called it the foghorn. I go, doo, and then you'd hear like trees smashing and him just hauling to get to me. It was like his emergency call. He'd say, "What's up?" and then he'd just leave again. I just wanted to check in, you know?
Yeah.
So when the guys got back from the water run, I was asking, like, you know, how'd it go? Like, where'd you find water? And they're like, it's a really weak water run, but we found like this, like down the hill, there was this cave. I never saw the cave, but they said it was like a big, open, walk-in, dark cave. And I was like, that actually sounds pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, we were in there. There was I think one of the guys said like there was something like a weird formation of like rocks or whatever, and like one of the kids took a rock or like knocked it over and like did something. I'm not too sure. But I do remember that being said. It may have something, it may have nothing to do with what I'm about to tell you after all this. But
I'll be quiet then.
Yeah. It's just weird that, you know, there's just a random little like nook of a cave. It's starting to get dark. We have the guys spread out the best we can on top of this ridge and everything. And so it's getting dark and we're so high up, you can see way out in the valleys and like it's just, dude, we are in the middle of nowhere. I will take a picture of the map and I'll send you the exact location. You can zoom in on it, however you want to do it. Nothing, dude.
Sure.
We are right on the North Carolina, Georgia line. And like we're right up there at the very tippity top. And man, and all the kids, they're all about to start passing out. They're all in their shelters, and it's just staff. We're just hanging out and talking. And then all of a sudden, I hear my dog just go, and I was like, "What is it, bud?" And then he's like, and he's just staring out, just right off the hill, like down to the valley type thing, like looking way out. And I was like, "What is it?" And I look out. And I see this light. It looks like somebody with a headlamp on, right? Somebody's moving around down at the bottom of this valley, like just walking like this and then coming back and then just kind of like all over the place, just kind of bouncing around down there. And I was like, I brought the attention to my staff. I held Arquillo by the collar. I was like, I don't want him running off anywhere, you know? And then I put him on a leash and hanging out, but he still keeps growling. I was like, how did he see that? You know, it's just like, it's so far away.
Yeah.
Like, that's a few miles away. And it's also a bright light. I'm like, that's a seriously powerful light too, if we can see it from this far away. And so I called my staff team over there and to come look at it. So now we're all standing on the edge and we're just looking at this guy. We're all coming up with ideas like, what could that be? You know, like possibly a hunter, you know, looking for something that he shot, trying to track an animal or something like that. That was like logical to me, you know, looking around or whatever. And somebody else was like, yes, maybe that person is lost. Or I was like, lost? Like, how would they even get out here to begin? We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no road out there. It's like, how lost could somebody get?
It's just not normal. It's not a normal thing for just people to be out there unless you're probably doing what you guys are doing or someone else.
Right. And just a solo light. So like that was just really weird to me. And as we're talking about it, looks like it started to come up the hill, like come towards us. It looked like it's getting closer to us. And then I was like, okay, y'all, if it gets any closer, I'm going to yell, you know, there are people up here, and let that person know, like, hey, don't come up here. Because again, my imagination, it was somebody with a gun that was hunting, you know, don't want him popping up here or anything like that. Just want to be safe.
Sure.
And as it gets close enough, I was like, okay, this person's getting really close. So I was like, hey, there are people up here. And then it just, like, as it was coming up pretty quickly, it just stopped. And I was like, he heard us, you know? And then it just started moving quicker, like really quick, like coming up. And I was like, oh my God, like it looked like it was like running up the hill, coming quicker at us. And I was like, dude, that's getting closer, like that's coming at us. And then I was like, hey, we have children up here, you know, like be like, don't come close, dude. And then it stopped again when I yelled. This time though, it didn't start moving. It was this ball of light, right? It's just a headlamp. In what I thought it was a headlamp. Right. And then this ball of light went into 2 balls, and then 4, 7 times. And now there's 7 balls of light. There's 7 lights, 7 headlamp looking things. And then they just start moving like a snake, following each other, traversing up this hill. And then I'm like, oh my God, it looks like a Navy SEAL team, right? They are hauling ass up this hill. And then I was like, I yelled at every kid in the group. I said, get your orange vest on, wear your vest, and grab your whistles, the safety whistles, and start hitting the whistles. Make as much noise as you can. Let people know we're here. Every kid's starting to like blow whistles. They don't see anything. They don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, staff just told them to start blasting whistles, right? So another thing of note, these things are quiet. They are making no noise. Remember, like earlier that night, I could hear people from a good distance away. It took them 20 minutes to get up the hill. And I could hear them the whole way, breaking through branches and hitting leaves and stuff. And it took a long time. These things are flying, hauling ass up this hill. And it starts to come right on up to the top, where we're surrounded, like in our little bowl area. And then it just stopped. And then the other one spread and stopped, and then stopped and stopped and stopped, and completely circled us around. So now we have lights right up to the edges of us. And they just stopped. And then I was like, everybody stay in your shelters, keep your heads down, hang on. And this is like a formation. Like this is like a crew of something, right? And then the second that they all got in their positions around us, it went, and all the lights went out in a row, and they all went out. And then I just got down, turned my headlamp off, because I was like, this is an easy target. And from then, I thought we were just about to start hearing like guns, like we're just going to get taken out. I didn't know what was happening. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Wow. Yeah.
And we never heard anything. All the kids are freaking out. Yeah. And we just kind of stayed in this state of like, what do we do for like the rest of the night, not knowing what to do. Like, didn't want to get the kids up, move. Like, we don't know what's out there. And so we decided to all sleep next to each other as staff, like with just in a pile, like no shelter or anything, like, and one person would constantly be on guard.
Wow.
And
so how real quick, how when the lights got up to the group and then to the point to where they went out, how far away would you gauge they were from you? Like actually at that point when they got their closest, I guess.
I don't know, probably like 20 yards out.
So
pretty close.
Pretty damn close, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Like close enough that we would hear movement. We would hear rustling in leaves.
Right.
Yeah, too close for comfort, right?
Yeah.
And especially coming from miles away. Mm-hmm. Like this thing came from miles away and then got here so quickly. Mm-hmm. It was like just hauling ass like on a, I don't know, I don't know. I can't describe it any better than I just did. Right there,
No, that's
like
that's a definitely a good description. And the height of the lights, whenever they were as close as they would get, did it still, because you probably still, it was dark, right? So you probably couldn't see any kind of figure or anything, but did you still think at that point, I mean, it was a person with a headlamp, or what was going through your mind like at that point?
so in the moment, I did believe it was like some group with like
Right.
military experience or something
Yeah.
like that. The way that they were moving and
Mhm.
coming up in like formation, and then how they tactically got behind us. But like, I couldn't get it out of my head that it was just one headlight or
Yeah.
one headlamp, because also this light is so weird. It didn't cast light. I want to be very clear on that. There was no shadows from anything. There was no like reflection off branches from the light. It was just a light. The craziest thing ever.
Wow.
Yeah, just absolutely nuts. We all laid down at night and we're taking turns like keeping watch and stuff. I just remember like waking up frantic, like from like laying on my back, kind of half cocked up. Like my legs are still on the ground, but like my chest is kind of up and I'm trying to sit up and I can't. It's like I got this pressure that won't let me move one way or the other. And I got my arm on the ground and I'm hearing all this rustling. I'm hearing so much like noise. And all I can keep saying is, what? And that's like all I can say. Like I want to say like, what the hell's going on or something like that. But like something happened. I could only continue to say what. And I'm trying to like lean back and turn around. And I hear my staff, like the people sleeping next to me, they're also just like in this state of like, just hearing all this rustling. Like there's like stuff going on and I can't see or be a part of it. Like it's happening right outside my peripheral and I can't do anything about it and I don't know what's happening.
This was that night, though.
This was that
Correct?
night. Yeah.
That
This
night.
was just
So
a few hours after.
So all this happens. You see the light at the end in the forest. It splits into 7, surrounds you. You don't know what's happening. You tell everybody to put on their vest and everything, and then the lights go out. You still don't know what's happening. And then I guess a few hours into it, you guys, you have someone on alert on patrol, and then whenever everyone kind of goes to sleep, then this happens. In addition to all this,
Yeah, it was me that was supposed to be up watching at that point. And it was like at like 3 a.m. And I was like, I don't really remember if I just said, screw it, I'm going to go to sleep. Like nothing's happening. Like that was just a really crazy, weird chain of events. I was just waiting to hear something move. And nothing ever moved. No sound. Yeah, and then I woke up and I had that weird experience, like everything shuffling and bustling around me.
wow.
And then all of a sudden I was able to like kind of lay back down and then out. Next thing, morning. And I remember asking, I was like, dude, did anybody have a weird moment last night? Like I woke up like kind of frantic, like thinking something was happening. My buddy that sleeps in a bug bivvy. I don't know if you know what that is. So a bug bivvy is like, a bug bivvy is pretty crucial to have out in the woods, especially during like buggy season. It's just a little sack that has like a bug net on it, right? And you can slide your sleeping bag into this sack, and you can enclose yourself inside, and it's breathable for the summer and stuff, and it just keeps mosquitoes off you and other bugs like that. But you're in it. And he was sleeping on this like little incline, and he always sleeps with his bug bivvy on. He hates bugs. He doesn't want bugs to come into the bivvy or anything like that. And if you're sleeping on a slant, you're going to wake up in the morning and your feet are going to be crunched because you're just going to be slowly sliding down your bag to the very end wherever your feet are, and you're just going to be crunched up. That's just that's unavoidable. Like you're going to be down. You're just going to, gravity's going to take hold. He woke up in the morning with, say, I cannot work this camera, like the views. Here's his, the bottom of his bag, and here's where his feet should be, like crammed in. And he woke up and his feet were this far from the bottom, as an example. His arms were over his head in this cross position. and he was out of his bug bivvy this much. Like he had been pulled out of his bivvy. And he freaked out. He woke up. He's like, no, like, screw this, dude. Like, let's get out of here.
Wow.
Yeah, another one of my friends said that he woke up and I can't really remember what he said. It was Full Metal. And I can ask him exactly, like, what his experience was. And I didn't hear about this until, like, a year or two ago when I was talking about this when we brought it up. He goes, yeah, no, like, this happened to me that night, too. And I was like, damn, dude, like, that's really freaking creepy that all of us had something happen to us that night.
Jeez.
You know, and it was just the staff. So collectively, in the morning, every person was like, "Screw this place, pack up. We'll eat breakfast at the next spot. We're not eating. We're getting the hell out of here. Let's just get to the bottom of this hill."
Don't blame them.
Yeah. So we pack up and we start going down the hill. My buddy that was leading the hike was leading it. We start going down the hill. And my stomach sunk when we started making it down to the bottom of the hill because I knew where we were. We were coming down, just so happened to be that horseshoe of Honest Gabe's spot, that same exact place. When we came down the hill, we came right down that slip. Every time that, wherever you hear like the footsteps of the girl coming down and everything, that's exactly where we walked down again. It was a happenstance, right? And we make it down to the bottom. I didn't want to tell anybody where we were. I didn't want to freak out anybody more than they were already freaked out.
Because they would have known. Because they knew about they know about that story, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't want to freak anybody out.
Okay.
So, but I was like, internally, I was like, that's crazy. Like, this freaking site is nuts, right? Like, just the fact that, like, I don't even know how we wound up here again. Like, just nuts, okay? Like, I can't explain that at all. That was not like, we were not trying to do that or anything. We just wanted to get the hell out of there. We happened coming down, and we're just at the damn Abigail site. And I'm like,
yeah,
we're stuck here. Like, this is horrible. I was like, I thought this would be better not being up there, but, you know, we're still here. And I think, like, just that whole area has this vibe to it, right? So when we're down there, we go and drop our backpacks and stuff, and then the group goes to this one kid. They're like, dude, this is where we had to take you to the hospital. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? I wasn't there for this. It was like a week that I wasn't in the field. And then this kid's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They're like, yeah, it is, dude. That's the tree you leaned up against. That's the tree that you had your seizure, or you passed out, or like whatever happened. They're like, that's the tree. He just looks like white face. He's like, no, it's not. This is not the place. Like, he just didn't want, like, and then I was like, what are you talking about? What happened? Apparently this kid was running around and something happened to his chest, knocked the air out of him or something. And then during that time, he just kind of like seized up and just fell up against this tree. Mind you, at this time, in this kid's experience there, like, he was a pretty negative kid as well, right? Like, not always like the happiest or nicest in that time period, right? Yeah. Still a good kid. But like, sure. I think that's just kind of like worth noting that it was a little negative at that time.
Right.
But yeah, he started seizing up apparently, and we didn't know if it was fake, or they didn't know if it was fake. I wasn't there for this. So they called out the field director at the time to come and check it out, because they're like, something's wrong. Like, I don't know, he might need medical attention. I don't know what's up. Field director came out and checked him, and they couldn't get him to respond to anything. Pain response, anything. He's just seized up. Like, and they didn't know what was going on. So they actually called the ambulance out into the field area, which is very rare. And the ambulance came out, the EMTs came out, and they're like, yeah, we don't know what this is. Like, I've never seen this. I don't know if he's faking it. I don't know how he would be, since he's been keeping this tense motion for over an hour. I think that's pretty highly unlikely that somebody can just fake it for that long. They ended up taking him to the hospital, and the second that they pulled up to the hospital and he got out of the car, it was like he came to, and it was like he just like opened eyes, and he goes, take me back. Take me back. And this kid wants nothing more than to leave this place, right? But he goes, take me back. And then they're like, he's fine, dude. I don't know what's going on. He goes, take me back. And then they ended up taking him back to the field. This kid does not remember any of that, apparently, or doesn't want to recall it.
Wow.
And he's like, that's not the tree. Like, that did not happen. Like, it's like he didn't want this to happen. Or I don't know. It's like, I had like a theory, like maybe if possession drill or something, like something got into him and like targeted him. Sure. And, but before anything could actually happen, they took him out of the field. And if it was like an Abigail type thing, or if it was Abigail, she did not want to be away from home. She did not want to be out of the woods. She did not want to be wherever that body landed her. She wanted to like have something and stay there. Like, that's what I think, or that's what I thought. So as they're talking about all that, and the kid's like, no, it's not. This isn't the place. Our radios go absolutely ballistic. And it wasn't like it was a in like a hellacious scream. And I hold this freaking radio up by the antenna. And I was like, guys, no way. Because like showing people I'm not touching it, right? Like it's just by the antenna. Another staff does the same thing. And like I'm trying to like even like use it to like see if like it's going to interrupt it or whatever. And it just stayed. And it was like the longest breath. It couldn't have been somebody around just messing with us, because like for so long, until we finally just turned the radios off, right? And then I was like, And then one staff's like, she's like, I'm going to go lay down. And then I was like, are you really? She goes, I'm not leaving anybody. She's like, I'm not leaving. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know what to do in that situation. You don't know if you just need to go lay down and like sleep this one off, or if you just need to like stay with the group, you know, like it made going to the bathroom sketchy by yourself, all sorts of stuff. And it was just a crazy experience out there. And
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So there's that portion.
So the kid didn't remember any of it. Did it seem like he was saying, no, it wasn't, that wasn't where it was, because he just kind of didn't want to remember and draw attention to it? Or did he just really not remember anything?
I can't tell you that one. He looked scared. That's one thing I do remember. It was like, that's why I think it's more so like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like he was like a pretty tough kid, right? Like,
sure.
He really was. He didn't probably want to show any sort of fear or, you know, anything like that. And I get it, but you could just tell. Yeah. Like, and he did not want to be there. And he just like, it was almost like, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to bring this up. I don't want whatever happened to happen again. That was it. And I can't remember if there's anything else involved in this story. But that was pretty much my last encounter and my last experience there. It was also one of the last times, if not the last time I ever went there. I don't know if I've been back. And
by choice, like are you willingly, consciously, like, I am avoiding that area, or was it just kind of by happenstance?
But I guess those last few times I accidentally wound up there. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was like this like thing. It's like that one time that I was on that trail and the trail ended, and then I was just in a circle of rhodo somehow all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Really weird to me, right? It's like, I don't want to get trapped here. I feel like, here's the other thing. I feel like I've had the majority of these experiences, and I've had experiences absolutely alone. Like that first time when the grouse went up and I was down there. I was the one that talked to Honest Gabe about it. You know, I feel like I've had so many personal interactions with whatever it is out there that like, feel like I'm really running low on more positive outcomes of me getting out of there. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
that's
like
a good
each
point.
time I've added on to the story, it's been a little bit more intense and intense. Something else, like something more and more real. And I don't want to like keep pushing it, but I would go back, you know, I would totally go back. But I would. It feels like it's something about me that really like gets it, or like I don't know. It was almost like I was like being targeted by whatever it was out there to like keep
Yeah.
messing with me. Like, oh, we got
Mhm.
this one. Like, let's keep doing it. You know, or like, oh no,
Yeah.
I can't tell you what it is, what it was, what happened, why it happened.
Yeah.
It just that's what happened.
It could be that certain people are more susceptible to that kind of stuff. Yeah, that is, you, this did not disappoint in any way.
Yeah, I
Lots of
thought
stuff,
like, what
right?
if Abigail was just like a mean slave owner, like a real bad woman,
Yeah.
like a real bad woman. And those lights that came up around us weren't bad. Maybe we were in the Abigail, we were in the up there. That's Abigail. We were in that spot where you're not supposed to really be up there. And what if that
Yeah.
was just a bunch of like, what if that was like one of those lights was that little girl and all the
Yeah.
other like people that she could have hurt, and they all surrounded and just protected us that night. They're like, we got your back up here. You know what I mean? Like, we're not
Yeah.
letting like this thing get to you tonight. Like, we got you. I've thought about
Yeah.
that. That gave me chills thinking about that. Like, I've thought about that a few times. That's really my story though, right?
Wow.
That's what happened. There are so many other things that I've heard, you know, like all of a sudden, like this is from other people, you know, the story's gone so far off the rails. Just a
Sure.
little girl swinging in a tree, just hung. And I was like, Jesus, that was never a thing. You know, that
Right.
didn't happen. But it's just a point to say, like, this story has really taken so many different, like, angles and gone to different levels, and which I'm fine with. But I'm really happy getting my actual original story out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, this was really this was a lot of fun. I keep like to be to be honest, I don't know why I'm into this stuff, because I'm the most scaredy person there is. But whenever you were whenever you were getting into the thick of it, I kept wanting to look to my side. I'm like, is anything gonna come and like put its hand on my shoulder? I'm like, oh man. Any of the stories that you had kind of heard regurgitated, were they different experiences that other people had, or did they tend to be people just kind of trying to just retell the story in a different version?
People retelling the story. That theory that I had about, you know, maybe she was just like a super horrible person, and like a horrible
The old woman.
angry white old hag slave owner. You
Right,
know,
right.
like that type of theory that I tossed out towards the end of my storytelling days on this. That just became what she is. Now, in the stories, whenever you hear it and you ask about Abigail, she's an old slave owner who
Right.
just was horrible to these people, you know, like, and that's what people say. And I was like, you know, you can turn it into that. Those are all just theories. Like, I've always been brainstorming on what this could be, you know, and like what could be a possibility. Nothing's factual other than like the experience that I had.
That story's like a game of telephone, right? Which is what I think you're getting at. You know, at the other end, it's going to be something different. But
Yeah,
did you get different experiences through a lot of the stories?
I did. I heard some, and nothing to like the degree
Gotcha.
that was mine, but also every time that I asked them, anybody, anyone, like, where did this happen? Like,
Where were you? That's right.
and they would show me a different map. You know, they're not even in the same spot or
Gotcha.
in the right location. You know, it's a very isolated little section of this one map where things tend to get a little crazy in my experience, a little wonky, you know. Like the freaking compass, like you can't explain that, like how that happens. Right. And it's just right up at the top. Like that should have been the telltale. We were in something else up there. You know, like that's not normal, and not just like one compass doing it, but both compasses. And yeah. So I guess, yeah, I hear other experiences, and like, yeah, stuff sounds like they had a creepy, weird experience out there. You know, it would mean more to me if I knew that they were in the right spot. Like, because to me, it's like you're telling me this add-on to the story, but it just sounds like you just had a really creepy experience in the woods, you know, but you didn't have an Abigail experience.
Have you poked around or thought of asking maybe some locals in the area about like, hey, there's this area and this is stuff or you just haven't really just messed with it to that extent, I guess? Okay.
No, I haven't gone
That's
into
okay.
that. I have
I'm
looked
just-
up like Googled the name Abigail of like that area. I don't know. Like I've done like some stuff. I've done everything except actually go out. That'd be really cool to see if there is something
Yeah.
like that was out there. From like a real old timer, somebody that's like generationally there.
Maybe the real Abigail was the woman, and
Yeah,
that's really eerie. That's really eerie.
that's I truly do believe that because I don't think
Right.
that little girl at the beginning was saying, "Shh, my name's Abigail." She was pointing and like, "Shh,
There's a
Abigail."
warning.
Yeah, like go this way.
Yeah.
So I always think about that. And yeah, I mean, so many things about this story. Like, yeah, it's not really scary, right? It's more creepy. It's like weird chain of events, right? Like,
I think it's scary.
there you go. Okay, well, yeah.
I think a lot of people will think it's scary too.
Yeah, dude, this is the first time I've ever told it. Saying it just to one person.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Also, like not being able to move around and get a little bit more animated.
Yeah.
This has been quite an experience just staring into my phone.
Well, yeah, and I'm looking at my webcam here, but no, this was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Appreciate you sharing every. I hope it wasn't too much. I hope it wasn't a traumatic trip down memory lane or anything.
No, I enjoy the storytelling aspect. I just kind of got to get into like remembering like the actual timeline, the way things happen, because there's a lot to unpack in that story, and you want to get things right as they've happened.
This was a really, really scary one. So appreciate you sharing very much. So.
All right, man. Yeah, appreciate you.